we're talking about the peanut ball. So the peanut ball really has nothing to do with peanuts, but it does have to do with balls. So I'm going to put a picture of the peanut ball right here so you guys can see what it looks like. It is just like an exercise ball that you might find at a gym, or a birth ball, which is what we call exercise balls when they're used for birth, but it is shaped like a peanut. Now, peanut balls became popular probably maybe like five to 10 years ago, and what they are used for is different positioning in labor. So peanut balls are great for getting us into different positions especially when we are laboring in the bed. And the time that most people are able to labor in the bed pretty easily is if they have an epidural. Now, it doesn't mean that peanut balls are only used for an epidural, but certainly when we have an epidural, a peanut ball can be so helpful. And what's great is that many hospitals and birth centers are now carrying peanut balls as equipment. So if they're carrying birth balls, they might be carrying peanut balls too. So as let me grab my pelvis. Here it comes. Oh, it's all tangled in my placenta. So when we're thinking about the baby fitting through the pelvis, there is a lot of movement that has to be done. So this, as you can see just from this example, the baby doesn't just fly through the pelvis, that it's a tight fit. And the thing about the pelvis, the inlet, the outlet, it changes in shape and diameter as we change our pelvis. So I put together a topic on movement that looks like this, and I'll put a link down below. Movement is really important to help the baby descend through our pelvis. And as birth workers, we have seen that if we use something like a peanut ball, we can get into some different positions, maybe with one leg up, kind of over straddling the peanut ball, leaning on it, and it can help the baby descend through the pelvis. So peanut balls are becoming a lot more popular. And what I would say is, if you are thinking that you're going to have an epidural, it'd be great to ask at the hospital tour if they carry peanut balls, if they use peanut balls. Talk to your doctor or your midwife how they help facilitate movement if you get an epidural, because it is something that's really important and can help progress labor along, and the ultimate goal of having a vaginal birth with the use of movement is really helpful. So peanut balls are a great tool for labor. Most people don't buy their own and bring it into the hospital, though I have seen clients birthing at facilities that don't make them available, that do have one, and then they keep it in their car just in case they get an epidural and they want to have that option. So it's something to think about. It certainly is a flexible tool and we've seen a lot of great benefits from it, and having that option for laboring in the bed, whether without or with an epidural. So today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite positions for labor, and I call it, and a lot of doulas call it, Captain Morgan. It's a position, not an alcohol. So if you don't know who Captain Morgan is, I want you to just pause that video right now, go over to another tab, and type in Captain Morgan. Okay, so pause. You're back, right? He is the logo. He's the guy on the bottle of rum. Spiced rum? I don't even know if I've ever had Captain Morgan. Have you had it? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, but the thing about the captain is that he has his leg up on a chair, right? You know that position, that Captain Morgan position? So I think that I would like to show you that position, but I'm gonna need to do a little rearranging of my furniture. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, I moved things around a bit. I brought my chair over, and I want to show you Captain Morgan's position, the Captain Morgan position. So just like the guy on the bottle, it's with your leg up nice and open of your pelvis. And you can see my leg, I picked a chair that's fairly high. You don't have to have your leg up this high, but having it about 90 degrees I find to be a pretty good angle for your Captain Morgan position. So as you can see, I have my pelvis is nice and open, and I have my right side up right now. So partners, this is a great thing for you to help with. If you're using this position in labor, what I want you to do is give yourself a time limit, and maybe you start out with just 5 minutes. So 5 minutes on this side in this position, and then you're going to switch your chair around so that you can do the other position, right? Not that high, because that's a little too high, that bench. But you want to make sure that you're doing the Captain Morgan evened out. You can stand like this. You can kind of lean. If you want to kind of rock back and forth, that's fine too. You can put the chair right up against a bed and put a birth ball on the bed. You can kind of picture that, right? Picture my imaginary birth ball right here. And then you can lean on the birth ball and kind of put some of your weight on that ball while you're still doing that nice open Captain Morgan. Now sometimes I've seen people in labor where instead of doing that nice open pelvis, they might kind of go like this, you know, and still try to like close in their Captain Morgan, and that's not the point of it. We want nice and open, and as we're thinking about getting our pelvis and changing the shape so that the baby can descend, we really want to see that side nice and open. So if you have access to a chair, make sure that you have one available and try out this position for labor. It is one of my favorites, especially if you find that labor is going slower, or you're kind of stuck doing the same things. You're leaning forward, you're sitting on a ball. If you need something new, try out Captain Morgan. Now, just like when you change any position, it will likely feel strange the first couple times you do it. But have your team, have your support team. If you're a support person, make sure you remind your partner that labor is going to feel different in different positions, and just like that, the Captain Morgan position is going to feel different. So, and maybe sometimes instead of doing like a 5 minute and a 5 minute, you could say like, let's do 2 contractions on this side and 2 contractions on the other side. So, okie dokie, we're talking about nitrous oxide. Awesome. Okay, nitrous oxide, another name for it, if you haven't heard of nitrous oxide, is laughing gas. So it's funny because I was going to say, as soon as it landed on nitrous oxide, I was going to say, oh, this is a new idea that is becoming popular in the US for labor and birth. But it's kind of not actually accurate because it's an old idea that's coming back again. So, nitrous oxide is using laughing gas during labor. So nitrous is something that used to be really popular, and actually if you watch the show called The Midwife, you might see the midwives carry something they called gas and air. So gas and air is the same thing as nitrous oxide. And if you are not in the US, if you're in Canada or the UK, you might think that this is just a common option for pain management, for comfort in labor and birth, but actually not to us living in the US. So in the United States, this used to be an option for people in labor, but it sort of left our hospital systems and is now making a comeback. So depending upon where you live and where you'll be giving birth or what hospitals are in your area, this nitrous oxide might be available and might not. But what it is it's the one cool thing about it is that it is patient controlled. So it's something that you can start and stop, and it's all by putting a mask up to your face and breathing in and breathing out, still holding the mask. And then after you feel the effects, you can take it off, or at any time you want, you can take it off. And the cool thing about nitrous oxide is that it leaves your system very quickly. So it's something that won't have an effect on you for hours. That's different from another pain management option like IV narcotics. IV narcotics, once you have them in your system through an IV, it takes a while for your body to metabolize the drugs and for you not to feel the effects of them. So the nice thing, the pro really of nitrous oxide, is that you have complete control over when you're dosing yourself with it. And if you don't like the way that it feels, you can stop. So there's a lot of advantages as far as the ease of use. Nitrous oxide is also very cheap, so it's not something that's really expensive. It doesn't require a specialist to administer, like an epidural, so you wouldn't need an anesthesiologist. But what you do need is the equipment, and you need a hospital that supports nitrous oxide. So if this seems like something that you might want to use for labor, definitely ask your care providers and during a hospital tour if it's available, and if there's anything that you need, any special testing you need done, anything that needs to be prepped before that can be used. If nitrous oxide is something that you're interested in using and you think that that might be an option, make sure you let your care team know when you are in labor so that they have enough time to get the equipment out. Sometimes especially in a facility that maybe hasn't been using nitrous a lot, they might not have all of their nurses trained on nitrous. They might not have checked the tanks to make sure they've been replaced if they get empty and that kind of thing. So it's always good to give your team a heads up and say, I'm hoping to go without an epidural, but I would really like to take advantage of nitrous, I think, in later labor. So, is there anything that we need to do to get it ready? That's something partners can always ask your nurse to, or your midwife or your doctor, and just make sure that it's ready to go. Because it's new in some facilities, I have seen that there's sometimes some hiccups in getting it to clients in labor. The other thing is thinking about when to use nitrous. So you would want to use it in that active or transition stage. So usually it's not used in the early stage of labor. It's more in active when you're really having to work through contractions or near the end. It seems to be most effective for a shorter amount of time, and so thinking about using it towards the end of a labor is probably a better strategy, or before you get an epidural could be another strategy for nitrous. The other thing that some people are using nitrous oxide for is during a repair. So if you have an extensive tear or an episiotomy that might take a while to repair, you could ask your care team if you could use nitrous during that repair. So it is just a thought. So definitely something that's becoming more popular. It's definitely a flexible way to use, have pain management. You can still get up, move around. You can still, after you use nitrous, you can stop and still, take advantage of other comfort techniques, unlike an epidural where, you're limited to the bed afterwards, or IV narcotics, which sometimes stay in your system and actually prevent you from doing a lot of movement because you don't have, you're not as sharp mentally as you are without an IV narcotics. So it is an option for a lot of people in a lot of places. Do your homework first to see what facilities in your area offer it, if they do, and if there's any restrictions, and if there's any special testing. Okay, that's what happens when you wait the wheel. The topic is care provider. Okay, so this is such an important topic, and that's why I added it so many times to the wheel. Choosing your care provider means so much to the success of your birth experience. So When I say care provider, what I mean by that is who will be taking care of you. Who is the medical professional that will be taking care of you for your labor and your birth. So this is going to be either an OB/GYN doctor, possibly a family practice doctor, or a midwife, or maybe a combination of those healthcare providers. You might also be seeing a maternal fetal medicine specialist if you are high risk or have any kind of extra health challenges. You might also have another doctor that's seeing you as well, or another care provider that's seeing you as well. So there is a tendency for people to stay with the care provider that they have used when they had regular gynecologic care, their regular pap smear, their regular exam, and just stay with that care provider and just not even consider leaving them. And this is something that I would really love if I could tell all of my students, everyone that's pregnant, is to really give the choice of care provider some serious critical evaluation. And I've even heard people say, oh, I'm just going to go with my regular OB/GYN this time, and then maybe the next baby I'll think more about it, which is, to me, just not recommended. It's not what I recommend. I think it is so important to think about what are your priorities for your birth, and then find out if the care provider that you are choosing are in alignment with those priorities. So a big thing to think about is whether you want to be under the care of a doctor or the care of a midwife. And I do have a video on midwives I'd love for you to check out if you're not familiar with the midwifery model of care. I can also put a link in the description about that. But midwives and doctors often have a different philosophy about birth. They have a different way of treating birth and thinking about birth. So and different people relate to the different types of care providers differently. So I think it's something to consider. Also, I would find out if the philosophy of your care provider is one that matches your philosophy about birth. If you're someone hoping for an unmedicated birth, then you probably want to work with a midwife or a doctor that is supportive of that. Someone who has worked with a lot of families that are looking for that type of birth, someone who is very familiar with it. It doesn't seem strange. And also, when you ask the questions, that you aren't, that your choices aren't sort of put down or made fun of. And when I say that, it probably sounds kind of crazy to some people, like, why would a doctor put down your choices or your decisions? But I have seen it so much. I've definitely worked with clients that said, I asked my doctor about going natural, avoiding intervention and an epidural, and they really said that it's very hard and most people don't do it, and I think you should be open-minded to other things, which it's so crazy to me because I think about if birth were like a marathon, right? And you told your doctor, I'm training for a marathon. Say you told, a friend or a doctor, and they were like, most people can't do it. Yeah, I don't think I probably wouldn't do that. You should probably just be open-minded to just stopping and walking and, quitting halfway through. Like, what? It's so strange. So if you are looking for that type of birth, if you're looking for something, if you have particular preferences or things you want to avoid or things that you're interested in, it is super important to talk to your care providers in advance about this. And when I mean in advance, I would like to see it way in advance, like as early in the prenatal care as possible. And the reason for that is if you find that you're not aligned with your care provider that you had been going to in early pregnancy, that you have time to find someone that you really like. So ask those questions, meet with, and if it's in a practice, if you're in a practice of different midwives or different doctors, make sure you can see a couple of them, especially if there is a chance that you will, any chance they'll be with any of them when you go into labor, so that they have similar philosophies and similar ways of going about treating you when you're in labor and birthing. Also, you can ask them, Do you feel like this is a philosophy that is the same for all of your team, your other colleagues, and do you feel pretty comfortable that this is the kind of care that I'll get from them as well? The other thing about choosing your care provider is if you have a specific health issue, or maybe like if you're trying for a VBAC, I would make sure that I was with someone who has experience in that, because you want, if you have the choice. Now, I know a lot of people are limited with maybe what they have access to if they're in a smaller town, and also if your insurance doesn't give you a lot of options. So that's definitely important to consider as well. But someone who has experience in if you have a specific health issue, or if you're trying for VBAC or something like that, I would make sure I worked with someone, if I could, who has experience in that. So it's okay to leave your healthcare provider. It's kind of like I've heard some people compare it to like leave your hairdresser. Oh, I can't get my hair cut somewhere else because I've been going to them for years. And it's kind of, the reality is that they won't miss you. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. I don't know how many times I've had people say, I transferred to another midwife or another doctor, and I just got my paperwork sent over and no one called me or asked me like why you're transferring, right? Funny enough, when I left my OB to have my third baby, and I left my OB to go to a home birth, I never called or canceled anything because I didn't need to, and they never called and checked on me. So as far as they're concerned, they probably think I'm still pregnant. He's 12 now, but maybe not. But what I mean by this is, don't overthink how they're going to feel, because it's really your birth, and taking control of it and choosing a healthcare provider that is on the same page as you, that you feel comfortable with, and you feel comfortable with the team, how they work. If you don't want a C-section, ask them about their C-section rates. Ask them about, if they've worked with doulas, if you want to work with a doula. That's huge. If your practice is not comfortable with doulas and you want a doula, you're probably at the wrong practice, right? So get those hard questions out. It'll be so worth it in the end to make sure that you have someone that you trust, that is in agreement with your preferences. And, not that you are going to get all of your preferences, because things happen in labor, but just going into birth with a similar mindset is really recommended. So do not put this off until week 36 of your pregnancy, or don't put off asking those hard questions until the end, because your options might be limited then. And I know it's really hard sometimes in some areas to switch healthcare providers at the end. So care provider is an important decision to make early in labor, and that is our topic of the 75th spin of the wheel. Now, 75 is a lot of spins, and they can be a little cumbersome to find and locate what you need in YouTube. So we have put all the spins into a nice organized course. We took notes, we have some bullet points on there, and it's alphabetized, and it's also by sections, and you can get in for free at birtha2z.com, and that's the letter A, TOZ.com. So it's free. It's just an easy way to find these YouTube videos, and get in there and check it out and make some use out of it. Oh, love this one. Okay, today we're talking about verbal support. So verbal support is a topic that has been on the wheel for a long time, and I've been waiting for it. So here we go. It is one of my favorite ways to provide support to laboring people. And it's something that everybody can use. It's so easy, and yet it can go so wrong. So I want to give you my super secret strategy for providing verbal support. Now, if you are someone who is expecting a baby and you're watching this right now, I want you to pause the video and get your partner, or share this video with your partner later, because these are tips for partners that are really, they're tips for partners that are really helpful. Okay, my super secret tip for providing verbal support in labor is to imagine that you are on the sidelines of a marathon and that your partner is running a marathon for the first time. Okay? So think about that. What would we say? Would we say something and they come up the hill and they're looking strong and you're just so impressed by how they're doing? You might say something like, you look awesome, you look strong, you're doing great, you can do this, keep it up, keep going, right? All positive, inspirational type messages. These are all great examples of what to do when you are providing verbal support in labor. Now, let's picture we are at mile 25 of that marathon, where there's 26.2 miles, and they still have just a little bit more to go, but they are dragging. They are like slower than they thought they would be. They look really not good. They might be walking where they should be running. They are all sweaty. What are we going to say? We're going to say the same thing, right? Or we might even be more motivational, like, you've gone so far, you're almost there, you're so close, you're almost done, you can do it, you're going to have that medal around your neck in any second. So we're going to say good, positive things. What we're not going to say are things like, you look so tired, you've been running a long time, you should probably just quit. Yeah, I'm tired. I've been here a long time. I haven't had any sleep. I've been watching you run this marathon. Oh, you're really in pain, aren't you? I can see the pain on your face. All of these are no, no, no. But what's crazy is that they are said to people in labor on the regular, not just by partners, but maybe by like a grandmother that comes in to support labor, even a nurse, even a doctor that walks in the room. I don't know how many times I've seen doctors walk in the room. I'm the doula, I'm supporting a couple, and the doctor says, I know you're in a lot of pain. You've been at this a long time. And to their credit, to the doctor's credit, they're not trying to be negative or, trying to be a downer, but they're trying to be supportive, but really it's not helpful. I have not seen it to be helpful. They know, the person in labor knows they've been in labor a long time. The person in labor knows that they're in pain. And that's the way it's going to have to be until the baby comes out or things change or we make different options or different comfort strategies or whatever. But it's not something that has to be told to you that you're in pain, right? And you might not even, here's the thing, you might not even think you're in pain. You might be just so focused on getting through the contractions, and when someone says you're in a lot of pain, you all of a sudden start thinking, oh yeah, I am in a lot of pain. Oh yeah, I have been at this a long time. And you start doubting yourself and getting all up in your head. So, support people. Words matter. Words really matter. Think about some of the phrases that you're going to use when you're supporting someone in labor and how they should be able to be yelled at off the sidelines of someone at a marathon. And that is your quick and easy test to know whether or not it's the best way to do it or not. I mean, the best type of verbal support or not. Now, if something comes out and you think, oh, why did I say that? That's okay. Just start being supportive again. Keep up with the verbal support. Verbal support is really helpful and it's really powerful. Say it genuinely because labor is hard, and so you can always support someone with those positive messages. And the other thing about verbal support is that it might feel like, oh, I've already said that you did a good job like 10 times. Well, yeah, it can be tiring because you have to keep doing it, but that's what you do when you're supporting somebody in labor. Just like if you were supporting somebody in a marathon, that's what you do. Many times you'll go find them and see them and say the same thing, and it's still supportive. So don't underestimate the power of good verbal support. It's something that you can talk about ahead of time with your partner. What phrases do you think might be supportive? So that, maybe they want to hear something like, you've gone so far, something like that, or think of what you've already done, or all the work you've already done is so amazing, you can get through to the end. so many different ways you can do this. So I would love to hear more about your thoughts on verbal support. We have a comments section below that you can enter those comments and I can read it and respond back to you. And that would be amazing. If you are a partner watching this and you like this tip and you'd like more, check out our Supporting Her online course for partners. It is a great way for partners to get ready for their role and really be at their best and be the best support people that they can and have a positive birth experience too as the support person.